of all say that.
Yeah,
Okay,
but we're not comparing Ortiz as a champion, though, are we?
No. I'm just saying. I mean, to put Martin in the conversation to me is just ridiculous. I mean, he's just not a very good fighter to me. Now, when we talk about the Parker fight, okay, I do think Parker is a good heavyweight, okay, but I've never been real impressed with Parker, okay. You want to go back look at Parker's resume? Questionable decision against Andy Ruiz. Very, very close fight with Huey Fury. And I can't remember who he fought. Is he before or after Huey Fury? It actually was a pretty good fight as well. So, I mean, yes, that was a really good fight. Okay, so, I mean, is Parker what people think he is? You know what? Hey, I have no idea. Okay, but what I can tell you is he struggled against Takam. He had a pretty good fight with Fury, and he had a very close fight with Andy Ruiz. Okay, but essentially all what matters is wins and losses. So at the end of the day, I mean, I don't rate Parker as high as other people may rate Parker, in my opinion. Now, I do rate Luis Ortiz for the simple fact that I like his boxing style. He is my favorite heavyweight. Doesn't mean he's the best heavyweight, but he's my favorite heavyweight because I personally like the style in which he fights in. Okay, I like southpaws. He fights with his jab. Okay, and he finishes people with the straight down the pipe. To me, that's old school, classic style, Cuban style boxing. That's the style that I prefer. Okay, that's why I like him. Okay, at the end of the day, I don't so much like going into the who can stop who and who can do this and who can do that. My deal is this right here. I can point out Luis Ortiz's strengths and I can point out his weaknesses. Okay. Now, if somebody that he's fighting can exploit those weaknesses because it's one of their strengths, then we can start talking because that's stuff that we can actually look at and put a visual eye to, and we can say, hey, look at this, this, and this. But at the end of the day, there's no way to tell unless these guys fight.
Okay, so if they were fighting, if the fight was made, if the fight was made, let's randomly say 6 months ago. Yeah, at Madison Square Garden, June the 1st. If that fight was Anthony Joshua versus Luis Ortiz, how would you bet? How would you bet? What would you be your gut feeling? How would you feel? Who would win and how?
My gut feeling, if Luis Ortiz had a full camp, I would put my money on Ortiz.
Okay.
Against AJ.
Method of victory.
Yes. Method of victory, I would probably say mid rounds KO.
Mid rounds KO. Okay. So yeah, that's cool. So over to Big Boys Boxing, your assessment, if you want to answer the question, and then give if the fight had happened 6 months ago when it was proposed at Madison Square Garden, who would you have winning and method of victory?
I would have picked AJ for a late stoppage due to exhaustion. I think Ortiz does have a very good chin, and as I've said quite a few times, I think Ortiz has been on the slide since he was about 37. He's consistently gotten slower for me.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I do think he's a good fighter. I think he's a solid, maybe number 10.
Okay.
And the reason for that, for me, is his best opponents. You could argue it was Brian Jennings. You could argue it was Christian Hammer. You could even argue it was Tony Thompson. Mm-hmm. But the gap between there and Deontay Wilder is a huge gap in class. So for me, he's not yet proven how good he is. And even though it's getting too late in his career to get too much better, he's proven at elite level how good he isn't.
Yeah.
So, I do think Ortiz is a good fighter, but I don't think he should be challenging for world titles until he's had an intermediate fight to prove that he is that good. And it's tough for him to get fights because he can be dangerous depending on the style of fighter that he's fighting. And he's not extremely marketable. So it's just how it is for Ortiz, and it's very unfortunate.
Yeah. So going around to complete the thing, AD, who do you think would win if the fight was made on June the 1st in Madison Square Garden, where it should have been? Who do you think would win and method of victory?
Yeah, AJ round 7 to 9, knockout. I think Ortiz would put up a good fight for the first few rounds. I don't think he'd have as much success as he did with Wilder. But yeah, I just couldn't see it any other way apart from a late KO. I mean, Ortiz struggled to finish a 10-round, well, a 10-round fight, let alone a big fight against an elite fighter. And also, can I just point out, these same people that say Ortiz is a killer at 40 years old are the people saying Kovalev is the washed-up has-been at 36 years old. Take it seriously, to be fair.
John, interesting points. John D. Lee.
Well, I think AJ has shown that he's actually got a very good right hand straight down the pipe, which is the best way to dispatch southpaw.
Yeah.
I think it'd be KO in the mid rounds. I also think everyone's forgetting that Ortiz has actually ducked AJ twice, not once. So when AJ, when he was signed to Matchroom, it was a WBA mandatory. The other mandatories was the IBF and then the WBA. In between the IBF and the WBA mandatories, they arranged to fight Parker. Ortiz wasn't happy to wait, so he went the WBC route, and it's at that point that he stopped. He got popped for his heart, blood pressure medication,
blood pressure meds.
Yeah, but he would have fought AJ instead of Povetkin if he'd have stayed with Matchroom, but he chose to leave and go the WBC route. So he's been offered to fight AJ and told he can fight AJ twice.
Two times.
No, that's not.
I've got a link in the chat, Phil.
That's misleading.
It's not misleading. I've got a link in the chat.
Real quick. The WBA, when he was a mandatory for the WBA, okay, when he was supposed to fight against Anthony Joshua, okay, Luis Ortiz was actually trying to get that fight. That's the only reason why he signed with Matchroom.
Phil, let me come back on that. The IBF was due ahead of the WBA, which is why Anthony Joshua was supposed to fight Pulev. Is that correct?
Take the fight.
Right. Pulev didn't fight Anthony Joshua because Pulev pulled out of an injury. Takam was next in line for the mandatory position, so the IBF mandatory was for Ortiz is knocked out.
That fight, but I know for a fact you gotta see that Wilder chin is he has a good chin, but what I will do as well. But as far as I'm concerned, that fight, but I know for the negotiations broke down. That's why Ortiz did not get that fight with Anthony Joshua. He jumped ship, okay, and that's when he went to the WBC round, okay. Now the IBF, I don't know exactly what happened with that because that particular sanctioning body is all over the place in regards to Luis Ortiz getting that fight. But I know for a fact they never mandated Luis Ortiz to fight Anthony Joshua as far as
I'll put a link to the article that I've got in the chat from the time that it actually happened. So
okay, all right, that'd be awesome because I've never seen that before. Outside of that, I mean, you know, anything else that you said about Luis Ortiz, I mean, that's just your opinion. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say my opinion is better than yours about Luis Ortiz. I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, everybody's opinion is equal because it's just theirs. It's what they believe. It's what they feel.
I'm only saying his chin and power's unproven, so unproven means I don't know. That's it.
No, I mean, like I said, hey, that's your opinion. I know for a fact he got up twice from a right hand from Deontay Wilder. I mean, there's only been one other fighter to be able to do that as Tyson Fury. But I mean, who knows? I mean, AJ Chin is also not proven as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, again, this is just all opinions.
Is Wilder's chin proven, Phil?
Man, you know what? I will say this. I don't know necessarily. I don't have any proof to say that Wilder chin he has a good chin. But what I will say is that 7th round against Luis Ortiz, he didn't fall down. And to me, that showed a lot about Deontay Wilder in that particular round because he was absolutely hurt, buzzed, stunned, whatever Deontay Wilder wants to call it. He was shaking. He was on the rocks. But at the end of the day, he withstood the round. He fought smart that round because he made it out. So to say his chin is proven, I don't know if it's been proven. We would honestly have to see him put through more of a test of just one really good shot and a half a round for Luis Ortiz. But I wouldn't say that his chin is unproven. I wouldn't say it is proven. I would just say that we would absolutely have to find out for sure.
I've put the article in the chat, Phil, so you can have a look at that whenever you want.
Okay, so it's me. It's me. How would I bet? How would I feel if the Ortiz fight were made? How do I feel it would end? I would expect Anthony Joshua to use range, lateral movement. Ortiz is a good boxer, so it wouldn't be a walk in the park. We'd be looking at range. We'd be looking at positioning from Anthony Joshua to face the southpaw, which he has faced before, knocked out before. And I would expect Anthony Joshua, my money would be on Anthony Joshua knocking out Luis Ortiz. When in the fight? Yeah. Somewhere down the line in between the 5th and the 8th round. Between the 5th and the 8th. That would be my bet. Okay. So that question is asked. Do we
Ralph.
Yo, carry on.
Let me add. I do not disagree with the premise that if the fight goes late, I do favor AJ in it because Ortiz just doesn't have the stamina, as I mentioned it earlier when he passed up on the 7 million with the zone. He knew that fatigue would be an issue, and with him having such a short camp, and fatigue is an issue when he has a full camp. So I do favor AJ late that fight. I'm more inclined to agree with that over a early or mid stoppage by AJ.
Yeah, gotcha.